Hey folks, this clip is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com and type in promo code VOLS, that's VOLS, at checkout to fill your freezer with enough gourmet food to keep your cookouts going strong into the fall. That is omahasteaks.com, promo code VOLS. The last thing I wanted to talk about on the post-game show here is this discussion that was had on College Game Day this morning. They were talking about what happens if you have a mini teams with one loss scenario. So if Tennessee has one loss, who gets in at that point with the way that the season ends? If Tennessee beats Georgia, who's getting in? Blah, 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 blah. And what I pulled away from it was that essentially these guys are thinking, and I think they're a decent reflection of probably what the playoff committee would be thinking, is basically that Tennessee, if they have one loss, is going to get screwed.
Well, today solidified that. Solidified that. I'm watching the Ole Miss LSU game, and I'll say why I'm doing that also. Okay. Clemson winning today, which was they the better team, not a chance in hell. Sure. They were atrocious, and they just have more depth. Okay. They've got Notre Dame, Louisville, Miami, South Carolina. Well, that right there tells you right now Clemson's going 12-0. Okay, so Clemson's going 12-0. They'll get in because the ACC is garbage. They have no depth. It's just what it is. Okay, so just because of that, Clemson's in. Ohio State or Michigan, whoever wins that game, as long as they don't lose the Big Ten championship, is in. Okay. At this point, and this is where I'm saying I'm watching that game. Earlier, I was like, oh, I would really love to see Ole Miss win because I want to see a Tennessee Ole Miss. We need LSU to win. We don't need Ole Miss in Atlanta, in my opinion, and here's why. You got to stay with me here. If we went out like we think, but Georgia beats us, and we're 11-1, and Georgia goes to Atlanta, if Ole Miss is in Atlanta, that means they've went undefeated. If Ole Miss loses, Ole Miss is still in the playoff.
Yeah.
See what I'm going with? So we need Ole Miss not to go to Atlanta now. The only way I think we get in because of Clemson, because of the national media, all that BS, we got to go to Atlanta. And if we go to Atlanta, that means we've won out. Win or lose, you're in. Win or lose, you're in. Just like it's happened before. If there's an SEC team undefeated in Atlanta, win or lose, you're in the playoff.
Yeah, because I definitely thought initially, like running it around in my head, I was like, well, if we lose to Georgia and Georgia goes to the title game and then wins, Alabama will be eliminated. They're two-loss Alabama.
Yes.
A two-loss team has never made the playoff.
No, I totally agree. The hardest part is I don't think Georgia beats Alabama because of the history of how many former assistant coaches have beaten Saban.
Yeah. I mean,
it's happened, twice?
Yeah, and you see what it took for Tennessee to beat them. You see what it took for Georgia to beat them in the national championship game last year. I mean, Saban comes correct for those games.
That's my only thing. I wouldn't want to hang our hat on that. But I do think you're correct. If we lost and Georgia was there undefeated, if Georgia beats a one-loss team, if Ole Miss is there and Georgia's there, we're screwed. We're done. Ole Miss and Georgia both going to get in.
Unless that one-loss team is Ole Miss, which could happen. Well, I mean, they lose to Alabama, they lose.
If they lose, they can't get in. If they lose to Alabama, Alabama's in unless Alabama slips up somewhere else.
Well, sorry. I mean, if they beat Alabama and then lose to somebody else is what I meant to say. They would still make it to Atlanta, but they would be susceptible to getting dropped out of the playoff picture. But what
the bottom line is, I was very 2 weeks ago. I was like, if we're 11-1, we're in. Now it's one of those that, to me, we got to make it to Atlanta. The only way we make it to Atlanta is to be 12-0.
I mean, I think a pretty couple of consequential games today that weigh into this, if that is the scenario. I mean, I think at this point, 11-1 with a loss to Georgia is the most likely scenario, and then obviously, beat Georgia and make it to the SEC title game. That's the ideal thing. I mean, we all know that. Obviously,
if there's an undefeated SEC team in Atlanta, they're in regardless if they win or lose.
Exactly.
That's just what it is. If you You can go 12-1 and be the number 4 team in the country and be in Atlanta at 12-0 and lose, and you're still going to get in.
Yeah, and
they're not going to let somebody jump.
Well, Danny says kind of what I'm thinking here. So you guys are forgetting, what if TCU is undefeated and wins the Big 12? That's what I was about to say. So a few consequential games.
TCU
one is happening right now. UCLA, Oregon. UCLA is undefeated, tied with Oregon 10-10 in the second. And then TCU is playing Kansas State. Really big game. That's one of the toughest games left on their schedule. TCU could go undefeated and make it in. I mean, that's –
I don't see that one happening. I don't – this is no slight. But if it's – one, I don't see TCU going undefeated. I don't. Everything that I'm saying is UCLA ends up losing a game. TCU loses a game. That means Pac-12, Big 12 are done. Yeah. If Clemson, for some reason, and it's going to hurt me to say this, but by God, let's go Fighting Irish next week. I hate.
Do us all a favor.
I just don't like Notre Dame, right? But if Clemson loses the game, ACC's done. That should tell you kind of the only 2 conferences that ever have a chance of getting 2 in are the SEC and the Big 10. You know what I mean? Like, it could – there is a scenario. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But if, say, Clemson slips up – now, hear me out. Clemson slips up in the ACC championship game and they lose the ACC championship.
Okay.
I do not think they make it over a non-Atlanta attending SEC one-loss team because of resumes only. But what I'm getting at, that means SEC champion in, Big 10 champion in. But what if say it's Ohio State that wins the Big 10? What if Michigan's only lost to Ohio State and Clemson loses and the Pac-12, Big 12 are out? There is a likely scenario that you have Ohio State, Michigan, and 2 SEC. I'm just throwing it. This year is this is why they need to expand to 12, because this year could be, for everybody that remembers sports back in the early 2000s, I hate to say it, Tennessee could be the 2003 Auburn. That got left out of the BCS.
Yeah, where LSU won by default, sort of.
It was either 03 or 04. And they deserve it. They were deserving of being there, and they got left out.
It was Tuberville, right?
That year's Auburn.
Yeah. From tailgate parties to busy weeknights, the flavor experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to savor all the flavors of fall with their mouthwatering assortments of perfectly aged steaks, ultra juicy burgers, and easy-to-prepare comfort meals that are ready in a flash. Right now, take advantage of 50% off site-wide by shopping their semi-annual sale. The sale only happens twice a year, and it is on right now. You get 50% off delicious customer favorites. And when you use promo code VOLS, that is VOLS, at checkout, you get an additional $30 off your order. And guys, I've had the burgers, I've had the Franks, I've had the chicken from Omaha Steaks. It is all phenomenal. Comes in this great freezer packed way right to your door. Incredibly convenient. I can't say enough about it, honestly. So don't wait. Go to omahasteaks.com and enter Vols at checkout and stock up on fall flavor today. Omaha Steaks is perfect for those chilly and busy fall nights with entrees that are ready before the kids can even say what's for dinner. And don't forget to use the promo code Vols at checkout and score your extra $30 off. Omaha Steaks isn't just steak. It is the best steak of your life, guaranteed. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code Vols at checkout. Minimum order may be required. Omaha Steaks. Promo code Vols. Absolutely. I mean, that, like, who at this point would not want to see some of the matchups that would fall into those games with teams that would be ranked 4 and above? I mean, you're potentially talking like a Tennessee Clemson. I think Tennessee fans and Clemson fans would love to see that, or at least Tennessee fans would. I know that much. And something TCU is
Clemson's offense is atrocious.
That's true. I mean, I think at this point, Tennessee on a neutral field against Clemson, Tennessee would be like a 10-point favorite right now. Clemson's sad on offense, man.
And I'm not saying this because I'm Tennessee. Watching Clemson's offense and how very, very subpar and very predictable and very run heavy because they can't throw the ball to save their damn life. Their secondary is not going to hold up to what we do, and their defensive line big and nasty. But by God, they're going to tap out. They can't tap out if we don't sub. We legit might beat Clemson by 21 points.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I'm not saying it's that we're that much better of a team. I'm talking about schematics. Their offense is atrocious.
Alabama's defensive line was pretty powerful. I mean, it's considered one of the best defensive lines in America. They didn't touch Tennessee. I mean, they just, with the way that Heupel coaches his teams, it's not that easy.
I want to touch on this comment. Danny said, I'm not saying it is going to be a 2-2. I'm just saying there is a conversation that can be had because, remember, the playoff is supposed to be the best 4 teams, not necessarily the most 4 light or the best whatever or the conference champions. It's the best 4 teams. Well, if the Big 12 is worse than the Big 10, a non-conference playing Big 10 team that's better than the Big 12 champion team should get in. That's what I'm getting at. That's why that's why we got to go to 12. I promise you, I'm with you. They will not go 2 Big 10, 2 SEC. I'm just saying the conversation at the end of the year, there's a likely conversation that could be had for that to be a case because of, remember, the definition is the best 4 teams. And the ACC is weak, the Big 12 is stupidly weak, and the Pac-12 is weak. That's all I mean by that. So I mean, no, you're right. They're not going to go 2-2. But the conversation needs to be had about the best 4 teams.
I completely agree. There's a lot of scenarios that concern me. Bottom line, just beat Georgia, and just as if that's like some easy feat to do. It's going to be really tough. I mean, it's just particularly annoying. This entire scenario and talking about this annoys me because you look and, you know, Ohio State beats their chest and they're good. It's a good team. Tennessee in years past would go like 11-1 with Ohio State's schedule. They would have had an 11-win season with Butch Jones probably if they had Ohio State's schedule.
Well,
like
I'm pulling up Ohio State's schedule right now.
Yeah, I mean, and Clemson's schedule this year. I mean,
oh no, well the ACC in general is just weak though. That's the thing.
Like, give me a break. Tennessee will end up playing when they get through the Georgia game, because I think that'll be the last ranked game of the season for Tennessee. Tennessee will have played 6 ranked teams, including 2 top 5 teams in 8 games. Come on.
But that's where I'm going at. It should be the best 4 teams. So like if you look at Ohio State, the Notre Dame win is looking less and less impressive. Okay, Arkansas State, Toledo. Well, Wisconsin fired their coach because they sucked. Rutgers, Michigan State, they're really bad. Iowa, everybody literally makes fun of them getting a first down. Then, so the only games on their schedule that you go, hey, these are games are Penn State and then Michigan to end it. Because then
that's it.
You got Northwestern, Indiana, and Maryland in between. Ohio State's schedule is, but this is where I go. This is where it proves my argument of conference championship games are null and void now.
Yeah.
Because Ohio State's going to have the easiest road of Power 5 to get to Indianapolis, their conference championship location, right? They've only got to play 2 legitimate opponents. 2, Penn State and Michigan, like legitimate opponents. Everybody thought Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame is looking less and less and less and less impressive to begin the year, right? So 2 out of 12 that are games. Toledo, no. Arkansas State, no. Both are spring games, right? Rutgers, a spring game. Wisconsin, before the year, was like, yeah, nope, that turned out to be a spring game. So what I'm getting at is like Northwestern, Indiana, Maryland are all very, very, very subpar. That's where I go back to conference championship games now are so irrelevant. So irrelevant because SEC is going to play the hardest week in, week out. If you get that bad draw like we've gotten, as far as 6 out of 8 teams in a row are going to be ranked, right? And pretty damn good teams. I'm sorry, it's about to be 17-10 LSU's coming back. They're down 17-10. LSU's not as bad as I said they were a few weeks ago because they're still 5-2.
That win in Florida was impressive. I watched the second half of that game.
But that's what I'm getting. It's like the resume to get there is what matters. That's where conference championship games don't mean a damn thing anymore. This isn't the BCS era. It's not just to go to the national championship game.
Well,
now it's to the playoff, and they've proven that they'll take teams that aren't in, or if they lose the championship game. So why even have them?
And you know what else screws us here is that the way, not even just the divisions of the SEC. The divisions of the SEC inherently are not dumb. It's a good way to schedule, I think, and it simplifies things a little bit. But what is dumb is that you don't just have the two best teams in the league playing in the championship. You have the best in the East, best in the West. And what that's created in years past is that Alabama goes in and just beats the doors off of whoever they play in the East. And then now it's kind of switched to, Georgia and Alabama are at least formidable, and that's something. But it should just be, if the two best teams are Georgia and Alabama, they play. But if the two best teams are Georgia and Tennessee, let Georgia and Tennessee play again, which is probably what's going to end up happening this season.
Well, the ACC is going to that. Is it next year or the year after? I can't remember. I think the Big Ten's doing it as well. If I'm not
mistaken, the conversation's being had. Yeah.
No, the ACC. If I'm not mistaken, ACC and Big Ten have already announced they're doing away with them. It's either a year or two, and they're going top two teams go. I know the ACC has already said it, but I'm pretty sure the Big Ten may have said it as well. No, but you're right. It should be the two best teams because in years past it has been Alabama and Auburn.
Because it just should have – exactly. It should have been Alabama and Auburn in those years past. Like this year, if Tennessee goes 11-1, Georgia goes 11-1, it should be Tennessee and Georgia, not Tennessee versus Alabama, because Tennessee beat Alabama. That's stupid. It's dumb. And
but
it's things like –
that's where, man, I go back to, like, the NCAA is a dying organization.
Yeah, you got to switch it
up. It's on life support for how they've done things and stolen essentially from players with revenue and stuff like that, and they figured out, oh crap, we can't do this anymore. Now, there'll be changes in the next 8 to 9, 10 years where the NCAA might cease to exist, but football, obviously, sports no, but the organization may cease to exist at some point.
I hope so, Lord willing. That's the dream.